I moved to northern Norway in March of 2023 to a cabin that sits about 8 kilometers outside of Tromsø. It's not much, just 2 rooms and a wood stove, but it's mine, and it's exactly the kind of quiet I was looking for after years of living in crowded apartments in Oslo. The cabin is tucked into the edge of a birch forest, with the nearest neighbor almost 2 kilometers away down a winding gravel road that turns to ice for most of the year. My parents thought I was crazy for choosing such an isolated spot, but I told them I needed the space. I needed to hear myself think. The mountains here are different from the Alps. They're darker, more angular, like the earth folded in on itself and forgot to smooth out the edges. In December, the sun barely rises above the horizon, and when it does, it's only for a few hours. The rest of the time, it's this strange blue twilight that makes everything look like it's underwater. I'd been living here for 9 months by the time December 18th came around, and I thought I'd gotten used to the isolation. I thought I understood what it meant to be alone. That night, my parents were visiting my brother in Sweden, and they wouldn't be back for another 3 days. I didn't mind. I'd made plans to stay up late, finish a game I'd been working through with some friends online, and maybe watch something after. By 1:30 a.m., I was the last one still logged in. My friends had all gone to bed, and I was starting to feel the pull of sleep myself. I shut down my laptop, stretched, and walked over to the window. Outside, the snow was falling in thick, lazy flakes, the kind that stick to everything and make the world look softer than it is. The thermometer nailed to the outer wall read -22 degrees Celsius. I could hear the wind pressing against the cabin, a low, constant hum that I'd learned to sleep through. I went to the kitchen to get some water before heading upstairs to bed. The cabin's layout is simple. Kitchen and living area downstairs, bedroom and bathroom upstairs, connected by a narrow staircase that creaks no matter how carefully you step. I filled a glass from the tap, drank half and set it on the counter. Everything felt normal. Everything felt safe. I was halfway up the stairs when I heard it, a dull thud, followed by the unmistakable sound of something rolling across the floor. It came from the kitchen. I stopped where I was, one hand on the railing, and listened. The wind was still humming outside, but inside, the cabin had gone completely silent. I tried to think of what could have fallen. I'd left the glass on the counter, but I was sure I'd pushed it back far enough. There were a few plates in the drying rack, but they were stable. Nothing should have moved. I waited for maybe 30 seconds, telling myself it was nothing, that old cabins make sounds, that the cold does strange things to wood and metal. But the rational part of my brain couldn't shake the feeling that something had physically moved. Something had fallen. I turned around and went back downstairs. The kitchen looked exactly as I'd left it, except for one thing. The glass I'd set on the counter was now on the floor, unbroken, lying on its side near the base of the cabinets. It hadn't shattered. It hadn't even cracked. But it was at least a meter away from where I'd left it, as if someone had picked it up and gently placed it there. I picked up the glass and set it in the sink. My hands were shaking, though I wasn't sure if it was from the cold or something else. I checked the window above the sink. Locked. I checked the front door. Also locked. Deadbolt engaged, just as I'd left it. The back door was bolted from the inside. There was no draft, no vibration, nothing that could explain how a glass had moved from the counter to the floor without breaking. I stood there in the kitchen, staring at the empty counter, trying to find a logical answer. Maybe I'd placed it closer to the edge than I thought. Maybe the surface was slanted. Maybe I was just tired and paranoid, but I wasn't convinced. I turned off the kitchen light and went back upstairs, moving faster this time. I wanted to be in my room, door closed, blankets pulled up, pretending that nothing strange had happened. I reached the top of the stairs and walked into the bathroom to brush my teeth. The sink was old, the kind with separate hot and cold taps, and the mirror above it was spotted with age. I turned on the cold tap and ran the water, trying to focus on the routine, trying to calm the low hum of anxiety that had started building in my chest. I had just put toothpaste on my brush when I heard it. A voice, low, muffled,
but unmistakably human. It was coming from downstairs. I froze. The toothbrush hung in my hand, water still running in the sink. I strained to hear, holding my breath, and the voice came again. It sounded like someone speaking on the phone, the tone casual, almost conversational. I couldn't make out the words, but the rhythm was clear. Someone was talking. My first thought was that I'd left my laptop on, that maybe a voice chat had reconnected or a video had started playing. But I knew I'd shut it down completely. I'd watched the screen go black. The voice continued for a few more seconds, then stopped. I heard the faint sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving across the kitchen floor. The same floor I'd just been standing on. My heart was pounding now, so loud I thought it might give me away. I quietly set the toothbrush down and turned off the tap. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. I stood perfectly still, listening, waiting for something else, anything that would tell me what was happening. Then I heard it again. The voice, louder this time, and it wasn't conversational anymore. It was sharp, frustrated, like someone arguing. The words were still unclear, but the tone was unmistakable. Whoever was down there wasn't happy. I backed away from the bathroom door and pressed myself against the far wall. My phone was in my bedroom, charging on the nightstand, just 5 meters away across the narrow hallway. If I could get to it, I could call for help. But the thought of opening the bathroom door, of stepping out into the hallway, where I might be seen or heard, made my stomach turn.
I looked at the bathroom door. It was old, wooden, with a simple latch lock. Not meant for security, just privacy. I reached out and slowly turned the lock, wincing at the soft click it made. I waited, listening for any sign that the sound had been heard. Nothing. I crouched down and turned off the bathroom light, plunging the small room into darkness. The only light now came from the thin gap under the door, a faint glow from the hallway nightlight I always left on. I sat on the floor, back against the bathtub, and forced myself to breathe slowly. Whoever was downstairs, I couldn't let them know I was here. I don't know how long I sat there. It could have been 2 minutes or 10. Time stopped meaning anything. All I could do was listen. The footsteps moved from the kitchen into the living area. I heard the creak of the floorboards, the same creak I made every morning when I walked to the window. Whoever it was, they were moving slowly, deliberately, like they were searching for something, or someone. I heard a drawer open, then another. The sound of objects being shifted around, metal against wood. My mind raced through what was down there. Kitchen utensils, a few tools, nothing dangerous, but nothing that made me feel any safer either. The cold from the bathroom floor was seeping into my legs, making them numb. I could feel the porcelain of the bathtub pressing against my spine, could smell the faint mineral scent of the water that lingered in the pipes. My breath came in short, shallow gasps that I tried desperately to quiet. Every tiny sound I made felt amplified, dangerous. Then the footsteps stopped. For a long moment there was nothing, just the wind outside and the hammering of my own heartbeat. I thought about my parents, kilometers away in Sweden, completely unaware of what was happening. I thought about my neighbors, too far away to hear if I screamed. I thought about how easy it would be for someone to disappear out here, where the snow covers everything and the darkness swallows sound. And then I heard the stairs creak. He was coming up. I pressed myself harder against the bathtub, as if I could somehow disappear into the porcelain. The footsteps were slow, deliberate, one step at a time. He wasn't in a hurry. He was taking his time, maybe listening for movement, maybe just enjoying the hunt. Each creak of the stairs sent a jolt of terror through me. 5 steps, 6, 7. The cabin only had 10 stairs between floors. I counted each one, knowing that when he reached the top, there would be nowhere left to hide. 8, 9, 10. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs and stopped. I could picture him standing there, just a few meters away, deciding which way to go. Bedroom or bathroom? I prayed he would choose the bedroom first, that he would give me just a few more seconds to think, to plan, to find some way out of this. The footsteps moved toward my bedroom first. I heard the door creak open, heard him step inside. There was a pause, and then the sound of my closet door sliding open. He was searching. I thought about my phone, sitting right there on the nightstand. If he saw it, he'd know someone was home.
He'd know I was close. The footsteps moved back into the hallway, and then they stopped right outside the bathroom door. I could see the shadow of his feet through the gap at the bottom of the door. He was standing there, maybe half a meter away, completely still. I held my breath, afraid that even the sound of air moving through my lungs would give me away. Then I saw the shadow shift. He was bending down. A moment later, I saw his eye pressed against the keyhole. I don't know if he could see me in the darkness. I don't know if he saw the outline of my shape against the tub, but I saw him. I saw the faint gleam of his eye, unblinking, staring into the room. He stayed there for what felt like an eternity. Then he straightened up, and I heard him take a step back. When he spoke, his voice was calm, almost friendly. "I know you're in there." I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The voice wasn't what I expected. It wasn't angry or threatening. It was conversational, like he was talking to an old friend through a closed door. That somehow made it worse.
He waited a few seconds, and then he laughed. It wasn't a manic laugh, nothing theatrical. It was quiet, almost amused, like he was enjoying a private joke. The sound of it made my skin crawl. "It's okay," he said, his voice still calm. "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted to let you know I'm here." My mind was racing. Should I respond? Should I stay silent? Every option felt wrong. If I stayed silent, maybe he'd think I wasn't there, that the bathroom was empty. But he'd already said he knew. He'd looked through the keyhole. He'd seen something. If I spoke, if I acknowledged him, what would that do? Would it make him more aggressive? Would it give him what he wanted? He knocked on the door. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Each one echoed through the small bathroom like a drumbeat. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said. "I just want to talk." But the way he said it, the measured tone, the fake reassurance, made it clear that whatever he wanted, it wasn't to talk. I'd heard that tone before, in documentaries, in true crime podcasts. It was the voice of someone trying to establish control, trying to make the victim compliant. I could feel the panic rising in my chest, threatening to take over. I had no weapon, no phone, no way out. The bathroom window was too small to climb through, and even if I could, it was a 3-meter drop onto frozen ground. I'd probably break an ankle, and then I'd be even more helpless. The door handle rattled. He was testing it, checking to see if it was locked. The simple latch held, but I knew it wouldn't take much force to break through. The door was old, the wood soft from decades of moisture. "Come on," he said, and now there was an edge to his voice, a hint of impatience creeping in. "Don't make this difficult." I made a decision. It was reckless, maybe stupid, but it was all I had. I thought about what my father had once told me about confronting danger. Sometimes the only thing you can do is make yourself bigger, louder, more trouble than you're worth. I stood up and shouted as loud as I could. "The police are already on their way." I kept replaying the sound of his voice through the door, the way he'd laughed, the way he'd said he just wanted to talk. The dispatcher told me the police were 10 minutes away. I watched the seconds tick by on my phone screen, every moment stretching into an eternity. I heard nothing from downstairs. No footsteps, no doors, no voices. The cabin was silent again, as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. I knew something had changed, something fundamental. The cabin wasn't safe anymore. It would never be safe again. When I finally heard the sound of car engines outside, I felt a wave of relief so strong it almost knocked me over. I heard car doors slamming, voices calling out, and then heavy footsteps on the porch. "Police, is anyone inside?" I unlocked the bathroom door and called down to them, my voice hoarse and shaking. They came up the stairs quickly, 2 officers with flashlights, checking every corner, every shadow. They cleared the cabin in less than 5 minutes. He was gone, but he'd been there. The back door was unlocked, hanging slightly open, letting in the freezing air. Snow had blown in across the kitchen floor, and there were wet footprints leading from the door to the stairs and back again. One of the officers went outside with a flashlight to search the perimeter, while the other stayed with me. She asked me to sit down, offered me water, and took my statement. I told her everything: the glass, the voice, the footsteps, the eye at the keyhole. She wrote it all down, her expression neutral, but her eyes serious.
The officer who'd gone outside came back in about 20 minutes later. He was holding something in a clear evidence bag. "We found this near the tree line," he said, holding it up, "about 30 meters from your back door." It was a small backpack, dark blue, worn at the edges. They opened it on the kitchen table, and I watched as they pulled out the contents: a flashlight, a pack of cigarettes, a lighter, a roll of duct tape, a pair of work gloves, and a hunting knife. The hunting knife was clean, unused.
But the fact that it was there at all made my stomach turn. "Any idea who this might belong to?" the officer asked. I shook my head. I'd never seen the backpack before. I didn't recognize any of the items. They took photos, documented everything, and told me they'd run it for prints and see if anything came up. But they also told me what I already knew. Without a clear description of the intruder, without cameras or witnesses, there was only so much they could do. They asked if I had somewhere else to stay for the night. I called my parents. They were already on their way. My parents arrived just after dawn. The sky was still that deep blue-black color, the sun not yet visible over the mountains. My mother hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe, and my father spent the next hour walking around the cabin with one of the officers, checking locks, examining windows, looking for any sign of how the intruder had gotten in. They never found an answer. The locks were old, simple, but they hadn't been forced. The windows were intact. It was as if he'd simply walked in, as if the cabin had let him in. We installed new locks that day, deadbolts on every door, a chain lock on the front. My father wanted to install cameras, motion sensors, alarms. I agreed to all of it, but I knew it wouldn't change the feeling that had settled deep in my chest. The police called a few days later. No prints on the backpack, no matches in the system. The items inside were generic, untraceable. Whoever he was, he disappeared as completely as he'd appeared. I stayed with my parents for 2 weeks. When I finally came back to the cabin, it looked the same, but it felt different, smaller, more fragile. I started sleeping with my phone next to me, fully charged, the emergency number saved on speed dial. It's been over 2 years now, and I still live in the cabin. I thought about leaving, about moving back to a city where there are people and lights and noise, but something kept me here. Maybe stubbornness, maybe a refusal to let fear dictate my life, maybe just the quiet knowledge that running away wouldn't change what happened.
The fear would follow me wherever I went. But I'm not the same person I was before December 18th. I don't stay up late anymore. I check the locks twice, sometimes 3 times before bed. I installed motion-activated lights around the perimeter, and I keep a radio on low volume downstairs, just so the cabin doesn't feel so silent. I bought a dog, a Norwegian elk-hound named Bjorn, who sleeps at the foot of my bed and barks at every unfamiliar sound. The police never found him. They investigated for weeks, interviewed people in Tromsø, checked reports of suspicious activity in the area. Nothing. The backpack was a dead end. The items inside were too common to trace. No fingerprints, no DNA, no security camera footage from the surrounding area. He was a ghost. I still think about that night. I think about the sound of his footsteps on the stairs, the shadow of his feet under the door, the eye pressed against the keyhole. I think about what would have happened if I hadn't shouted, if I hadn't lied about the police. Would he have broken down the door? Would he have hurt me? Or would he have just stood there, talking through the wood, waiting for me to break?
Bjorn will sometimes stand at the window and growl at something I can't see, and my heart will race, and I'll grab my phone and check the security cameras I installed. There's never anything there. I tell myself I'm being paranoid. I tell myself the police were right, that it was probably just a random intruder, someone looking for valuables, someone who panicked when he realized I was home. Maybe he was high, maybe he was mentally unstable, maybe he didn't even remember being there. But I don't believe that, because I heard the way he laughed. I heard the calm in his voice when he said he just wanted to talk. I heard the patience in his footsteps, the deliberate slowness of someone who wasn't in a hurry, who wasn't afraid of being caught. And I know that whatever he wanted, he didn't get it that night. Which means, somewhere in the back of my mind, in the place where logic doesn't reach, I believe he might still be looking for it. I've thought about leaving Norway altogether, going back to Oslo, or even farther, maybe to another country. Starting over somewhere warm, somewhere crowded, somewhere the sun doesn't disappear for months at a time. But every time I seriously consider it, I think about what it would mean. It would mean admitting that he won, that he took something from me that I can't get back. My sense of safety, my home, my peace. And I'm not ready to give him that. So I stay. I lock my doors. I check my cameras. I let Bjorn sleep in my room. And I live with the knowledge that somewhere out there, in the darkness between the trees, in the endless winter nights of northern Norway, there might be someone who remembers me. Someone who knows where I live. Someone who, for reasons I'll never understand, walked away when he could have stayed.